Hey guys, welcome back to the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles! Resolve. In the last episode, we started the cross-examination of Judge Jigoku. And, well, in his testimony, he claimed that at all times there was somebody outside his cabin. But the evacuation drill says otherwise. It says, all crew members are required to assemble on the main deck at 10 p.m. in order to review evacuation procedures. The drill will take 20 minutes. And we presented that. And now we're here. So let's get this trial just going. Yes, as the court has heard, there was a crewman posted outside Judge Jigoku's cabin. However, we can be sure that, contrary to the witness's claim, the guard wasn't there at all times. What? I have here a notice of a particular event that was scheduled to take place aboard the steamship on the 31st.
What? Where did you get that?
It's evidence gathered by Mr. Sherlock Holmes. You were acquainted yesterday, if you remember.
Sherlock Holmes again.
According to this itinerary, after leaving the port of Dunkirk at exactly 10 p.m. and for a period of 20 minutes, all crewmen of the SS Grouse were together on deck for an evacuation drill.
All crewmen were away from their posts?
And during that 20-minute interval, of course, any gunshots emanating from your cabin would have been heard by no one. In summary, Judge Jigoku, you had ample opportunity to commit the crime. Oh.
Objection!
A 20-minute window of opportunity. That's an excellent find, Ryunosuke. But it amounts to nothing. Why? Because the witness clearly stated in his testimony that no incident occurred in his cabin, unless you have some decisive evidence that could show his testimony to be false. Your accusation is nothing more than conjecture. Very true. Well, counsel? Inspector Gregson was killed in Judge Jigoku's cabin that night. I'm certain of it. Because the defense has the evidence to prove it. You will present the evidence for the defense at once, counsel. What proof do you have that the victim's life was taken in Jigoku's cabin on the 31st October? Well, that's pretty easy because that was this one. A small machine part that Mr. Sholmes found in Judge Jigoku's cabin on the SS Grouse. It's now clear that it's the missing crown of Inspector Gregson's pocket watch. Judge Jigoku, this was found in your cabin yesterday. What is that? The crown of a pocket watch?
A pocket watch.
And if you will observe, the victim's pocket watch, which we know he treasured, is missing precisely that part.
It can't be.
Moreover, this crown is a perfect fit on the spindle protruding from the victim's watch. Now, the fact that this was retrieved from Judge Jigoku's cabin tells us that the victim's watch almost certainly broke there. In other words, the victim was killed on the 31st during the 20-minute evacuation drill. In the cabin occupied by you, Judge Jigoku.
Well, you're razor sharp, aren't you, you young murderer? Objection!
Expertly maneuvered, Ryunosuke. And your argument sounds entirely plausible, at first. But rather like this pocket watch, it's full of cracks. What? And I believe Judge Jigoku feels the same way.
I was wrong to acquit you earlier in the year.
Sorry?
If I'd known that it would result in anyone having to listen to this drivel, I would have declared you guilty just to spare the world your ridiculous bombast.
I think it's clear that the witness will have to give further testimony.
When you hear what actually happened in my cabin that night, you'll notice the pitfall into which you've stumbled.
Prior to your renewed testimony, I would like to clarify one point. The fact that this part of the victim's watch was discovered in your cabin means that you acknowledge she was there, I presume.
Yes, I do.
Very well then. You may proceed to give your formal testimony about what exactly happened in your cabin aboard the ship in the evening of the 31st October.
Of course, as a man of the law, I have no intention of obstructing justice.
Ooh. Witness testimony. The events in the cabin.
I had a guest waiting for me when I returned to my cabin after finishing my evening meal in the dining room. When I walked through the door, a mustachioed Englishman was there, foolishly waving a gun at me. I soon took care of him with an Ippon-seo throw, though. He couldn't wait to run away after that. I imagine his watch was broken when I threw him over my shoulder. It has nothing to do with his murder. The inspector was clearly killed having returned to Britain because his body was found in London.
Ippon-seo?
A common jujutsu martial arts technique in my country. I was careful not to use too much force, but the man obviously landed too heavily for his watch to take.
So, Ryunosuke Naruhodo, I imagine you can see the flaw in your logic now, can't you? What? The fact that the pocket watch was broken in the witness's cabin in no way proves that the victim's murder took place there.
Oh!
I have no doubt the inspector intended to kill me, but he didn't manage to pull the trigger.
Yes, because he was merely the tactician, not the Reaper's hand of death.
Well, the testimony appears to make perfect sense as far as I can tell.
Let me express my deep gratitude for your understanding, my lord.
But if this testimony holds, Judge Jigoku will be deemed to have had no involvement in this case.
Well, counsel, I really see no reason for wasting precious court time here on a cross-examination.
Sorry, my lord. The defense has a right to cross-examine, and I don't intend to squander that.
You're an embarrassment to your countrymen, not knowing when you're beaten.
In that case, proceed, Mr. Naruhodo.
Alright, let's start the cross-examination. The events in the cabin.
I had a guest waiting for me when I returned to my cabin after finishing my evening meal in the dining room.
Because the so-called guard posted at your cabin door had just let your killer pass, you mean?
Apparently, Gregson told the crewman he was a police inspector, which was the truth, of course.
He wouldn't have had his identification with him, though.
He had this trench coat and moustache, not to mention the bag of chips. I imagine the crewman was convinced.
But the man accompanying him would have had two swords slung around his waist.
You mean me?
Who else?
Yes, that's true. You would have hoped the sight of a few swords might have set off alarm bells in the guard's head.
The point is, I left the cabin before its occupant returned and immediately disembarked the ship.
Certainly, all I can tell you is that only the inspector was waiting for me when I arrived back at my cabin.
And you entered without any inkling of suspicion?
That's right, none whatsoever. When I walked through the door, a mustachioed Englishman was there foolishly waving a gun at me.
Hold it! Obviously, you're talking about Inspector Gregson.
Yes, though at the time I didn't know the man's name. And there was no time for introductions. I value my life over manners.
By which you mean that the inspector was there to assassinate you, I suppose?
That was certainly not the impression given by the gun pointing in my direction. But I've never seen the muzzle of a revolver shake about so much in all my life. Anyone will think the man had never shot somebody before.
Believe it or not, most of us haven't.
Anyway, there was no time to call for the help of the crewman at the door, so I dealt with the man myself. I soon took care of him with an Ippon Seo throw, though. He couldn't wait to run away after that.
Hold it!
Even though the man had a gun, that was a very brave move, wasn't it?
Ha 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 ha. My Ippon Seo is far faster than a bullet, I can assure you.
But surely all that commotion caused the crewman to come in, didn't it?
Yes, of course. He burst in immediately without knocking. The inspector hurled himself at the stocky fellow and just managed to slip past him to make his escape.
The outstanding guard does it again.
Luckily, there are many situations I can't get out of using a quick Ippon Seo throw. I imagine his watch was broken when I threw him over with my shoulder. It has nothing to do with his murder.
Hold it!
The crown snapped off and the glass covering the face of the watch was cracked.
Preferably the man's head being pulled off for his spine cracking, would you say?
Not that the man was spared for long. A bullet to the chest soon saw to that. But the point is, the broken pocket watch doesn't prove that a murder took place.
Absolutely not. All the watch proves is the power of my jiu-jitsu throw.
Whatever you say, it doesn't quite ring true that no shot was fired in that cabin. Because there was an obvious bullet hole in the wall.
Ha 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 ha. What are you talking about? That's what the star of your lowbrow detective stories told you, is it? Well, I don't care for such fiction. Haven't you worked it out yet, you little stripling? No murder took place in my cabin. The inspector was clearly killed having returned to Britain because his body was found in London.
Hold it!
But there's no evidence that proves the victim will ever return to London alive.
Just take a moment to think that idea of yours through, now, stripling.
What?
If the inspector was killed on the steamship in France, how on earth could he have got back to Britain? When people die, their bodies remain at the same spot. It's a devil of a thing.
Well, then, obviously the culprit must have moved the body.
How exactly? Carrying a corpse of a ship in your arms would raise a few eyebrows at least, don't you think?
Well, yes, that's true, but...
All passengers' luggage is inspected when it is unloaded from arriving vessels. And I would like to think the border police would query the corpse of an English gentleman's hand luggage.
If the murder had taken place aboard the ship, you would imagine the body would have been disposed of at sea. There would be no sense in risking being caught by attempting to transport the body back to Britain. Oh, that's killed the idea then. But perhaps not. Mr. Sato? We've heard that the first-class passengers were under constant scrutiny by the crewmen posted to guard them, which would mean that the culprit had no opportunity to dispose of the body in the sea. Yes, that's true. So transporting the body to Britain may have been the only viable alternative.
Dear me, you really are new to this, aren't you? I thought I'd been perfectly clear, but it seems I'm going to have to explain it in words you can understand. I think I ought to alter my testimony, with your consent, of course, my lord.
I have no objections. State your amended testimony now.
There's no possible way I could have transported the victim's corpse back to Britain.
Let's press. There's an idea.
Think about it, stripling. All passengers and crew disembarked at the same time and passed through the same checks at the border. The symposium guests were then driven straight to their hotel in carriages, organized by the ministry.
And we met you as soon as you arrived at the hotel.
So you did. Well then, remind me, did I have a corpse over my shoulder at the time?
What? No!
So we're in agreement then. I couldn't possibly have brought the inspector's body back to Britain. Unless, of course, they've developed some clever device these days to instantly move things from A to B.
Funny you should say that.
Professor Hairbrain's invention didn't actually work, if you remember, Mr. Naruhodo.
Yes, of course.
The defense has become unusually quiet, I notice.
Yes, because there's really nothing more to say.
So that's his story.
Well, I suppose if you think about it, whenever you drop a teacup in the office and it breaks, we don't say, Mr. Naruhodo must have been murdered there, do we?
Is that a veiled threat about what might happen to me if I break another one?
And the fact is that Inspector Gregson's body was found in the little room on Fresno Street. If he really was killed in Judge Jigoku's cabin, the body would have been moved somehow, obviously.
Transporting a dead body over country border. That would be impossible for the majority of people. So there must have been some special circumstances that made it possible for the culprit there.
That could be a vital realization, I think, Mr. Naruhodo.
Yeah, I mean, he's a diplomat. He's the Minister of Foreign Affairs. So can we prove it? So can we prove that he somehow moved the body? Can we do that? The Asogi papers. I don't think... It was deep sadness and pain in this foreign land. Never see my homeland family, but I regret nothing about my chosen path. No. Commemorative photograph. He didn't have it on him though. Yeah. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense here. Tombed by Scotland Yard. To be tightly curled up, and there's a red hairpiece on his head. Venus firecracker, the notice board, the autopsy report. Was shot in the chest from behind. The revolver, the candelabrum, hairpiece. This doesn't make sense. Yeah. Okay, so that is okay, but Blackbird line. It's written on the back of the steamship. Nothing about that. The armband doesn't do it. It's now clear that it's the missing crown of Inspector Gregson's. Would he fit into the trunk? That is a question worth scrutinizing. I mean, I really can't think of anything else, to be honest, because... But wait a second. The photograph taken in the foyer of the Great Waterloo Hotel in the morning of Professor Mikoto and Judge Jigoku's arrival in London for the symposium. And look at this huge trunk. Look at this huge suitcase. He's a diplomat. So people are not allowed to... So I think I would either go with the trunk or the photograph, and I think it's the photograph. There's no possible way you could have moved Inspector Gregson's body, you say? I would say the opposite is true.
And what's that supposed to mean?
Far from being impossible for you to do. The transporting of Inspector Gregson's body back to Britain is something only you could do.
What are you talking about, Ryunosuke?
As well as being a judge, Mr. Jigoku is also Japan's Minister of Foreign Affairs. Which means he's exempt from having his luggage searched when he enters the country. We learned that when we first met you upon your arrival in London.
Well, all these passport checks and luggage searches at the border took rather a lot of time. I must say, I'm very envious of your mysterious status. You didn't have to go through any of that, did you? Oh, I knew you were jealous. Ha 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 ha.
I presume you recall this, Judge Jigoku. It's a photograph we took in the foyer of the hotel to mark the occasion. As the court will note, you have with you your large travel trunk. Large enough, in fact, to have a corpse inside.
Mr. Naruhodo, surely you're not suggesting...
I'm afraid I am. Yes. 3 days ago, when we were chatting innocently with the new arrivals from Japan in the hotel, the body of Inspector Gregson was just meters away from us, inside Judge Jigoku's trunk.
Order in court! I'm skeptical, counsel, that a grown man's body could fit inside even the largest travel trunk.
It could. Because I happen to know that the witness himself, a man of considerable size, fits inside his trunk. And verifying that would be extremely simple, wouldn't it, Judge Jigoku?
But inside his trunk? How horrifying!
And after we'd spoken with you at the Great Waterloo Hotel, you had the opportunity to visit the apparent scene on Fresno Street, taking your trunk with you in a cab to deposit the inspector's body.
I don't have to listen to this nonsense.
Dr. Gori, the coroner who examined the body, has confirmed the possibility. She's acknowledged there are signs that steps may have been taken to disguise the true time of death. The onset of the body's decomposition could have been delayed by storing it in a refrigerator.
Counsel, as I remember explaining yesterday, refrigerators of the requisite size are few and far between.
Yes, I'm sure they are, but one place they're certainly found is on large ocean liners. Such ships are equipped with electrically refrigerated cold rooms to keep food fresh on their long sea voyages, and the SS Grouse is no exception. Professor Mikotoba told me about it only yesterday. Well, Judge Jigoku? However much you prolong this debate, you can't eliminate the truth. All the evidence points to you being the killer.
Ha 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 ha. Well, this is all very heartening. I can see that it was a wise move, letting Asugi and you embark on this study tour.
What are you talking about now?
Logical reasoning, of course. All court proceedings will be built on logical reasoning in the new century. And I can see that you've both laid firm foundations for that already.
Judge Jigoku, please, stop diverting attention from the issue at hand. The defense has made an accusation against you. How do you respond?
Respond? There's really no need for me to respond, is there?
Why ever not?
Because before you can even begin to answer the question of when the victim was killed, you must first establish one key fact. Where was the victim killed? It's quite logical.
The actual scene of the crime. The prosecution's stance is unaltered. The killing took place on Fresno Street when the gunshot was heard. As the accused, Barak von Zieks shot the victim at point-blank range.
Since no tangible evidence exists to disprove the prosecution's claim at this time, the defense's deductions amount to little more than an elaborate fairy tale.
I'm afraid that's how the logical reasoning the British are known for really works, young stripling.
The victim was shot in that little room on Fresno Street and died instantly? I'm afraid it's the prosecution's claim that's the only fairy tale here. How can you say that? Quite simply, because that claim directly contradicts a certain piece of evidence in our possession.
Very tantalizing, counsel. I think you had better explain yourself to the court, don't you?
The prosecution claims that Inspector Gregson died instantly when he was shot at the scene on Fresno Street. But this evidence clearly contradicts that claim. Wait a second, could it be? Wait a second. I mean, why would he be curled up? If he's shot, wouldn't he just fall backwards? Is it really that being this curled up makes sense?
Take that!
Okay, I just presented and it seems to be correct. Okay, a photograph of the victim in the very location you claim he wasn't killed? Yes, but the point is the posture of the body itself. If Inspector Gregson had been shot there in that room, it's out of the question that this body would have been curled up in a ball like that.
I'm sorry to disappoint you, but your logic is flawed. He could easily have adopted that fetal position due to the pain of the shot, which subsequently proved fatal.
Objection!
I'm sorry to disappoint you, Judge Jigoku, but it's your logic that is flawed.
What?
According to this autopsy report, the victim died instantly. He would have felt no pain, much less have been able to draw himself into that position. Which begs the question of why the victim's body is curled up in that way. Though the answer should be abundantly clear by now.
You're suggesting...
The inspector's body took on that posture ahead of its arrival on Fresno Street, before it was coldly turned out on the floor, from the inside of a large travel trunk.
No! You're quite right. The shape of the body. It looks exactly as if it had been kept in a confined space.
Judge Jigoku, present your trunk for examination. I believe it's very possible that it will contain traces of the victim's blood.
Present my trunk? I refuse.
What? On what grounds?
I'm the Minister of Foreign Affairs from the Empire of Japan. I shouldn't have to put up with this treatment just because of some stripling's baseless accusations.
In other words, Judge Jigoku, there is blood in your trunk.
I decline to answer that. I, as the Minister of Foreign Affairs, I have privileges.
At this moment, you're not a government minister. You are a witness in a trial in Britain's highest court. I don't care who you are or what your status outside this courtroom might be, you will not withhold information. Nothing is more important than the truth.
Order in court. Well, Mr. Jigoku, what's it to be?
You can't be serious. You did it!
Have you no shame at all, Kazuma Asogi?
What?
Very well, I admit it. I did bring the inspector's body into the country. Inside my trunk, exactly as postulated by the defense.
What? You...
Dear God, outrageous!
So it was you! You admit to Inspector Gregson's murder!
No, I admit to nothing more than what I've said. Of killing the man, I certainly have no recollection.
What on earth is that cryptic statement supposed to mean?
I merely disposed of the inspector's body, which was left in my cabin, in order to avoid unwanted attention. As the judicial assistant over there pointed out, I had no chance to throw it into the ocean. So, I decided my only option was to bring it into Britain with me and dispose of it somewhere else.
You can't still deny it. If you didn't do it, then who on earth did kill the man?
As you know, there was one other person in my cabin that night. He had the opportunity. And moreover, he'd already accepted a mission to take the inspector's life.
Oh,
That's right. Who else could it have been? It was you, Kazuma Asogi.
you... Oh guys, this is turning into oh my god. Okay, sorry. I never thought that you'd stoop to the... Sorry. I never thought you'd stoop to the Seishiro Jigoku.
You've taken the words straight out of my mouth. Prosecutor Kazuma Asogi. You thought by leaving the body in my cabin you could pin the crime on me, did you?
Well, the prosecution counsel has already admitted to visiting the witness's cabin on the night in question.
Yes, on an assassination mission, no less.
You wouldn't.
So, what do you make of that, young stripling? You've heard my testimony now, and that's all I have to say on the matter. I'll admit to nothing more.
I don't believe this.
Counsel for the defense. What is your position now? The court awaits your response to the witness's assertion. The assertion that on the night in question, the victim's assailant was in fact Mr. Kazuma Asogi.
This isn't the dead end it seems to be. The answer's right in front of me. It comes down to Jigoku or Kazuma. Both of them had the opportunity to kill Gregson, but only one of them did it. And I'm just a step away from proving who. Very well, the defense is ready to respond to the assertion put forward by Judge Jigoku. The idea that the victim's murder could have been committed by Prosecutor Asogi is... well, I think it's possible, to be honest. It could have been. But... guys, let me check. Yeah, we have breached the half-hour mark. And if you want to know how we are going to answer this, you'll have to tune in next time for the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles.
Resolve.
See you then.